I thought in a very bizarre way I might give you a little story that has a little bit of reference to Lag BaOmer, even though it happens before kind of Lag BaOmer, and it has nothing actually to do with Lag BaOmer, but it has to do with a barbecue. Well, a long, long time ago, there was a prophet, and this prophet's name was Eliyahu. Now, Eliyahu was the head of a school with lots and lots of students, and he was very, very famous. He also had a habit of speaking out against injustices and things that he thought was wrong, no matter who was the one doing the wrong. And he saw the king of Israel, this is 2,500 years ago, 2,700 years ago. The king of Israel had married a queen from another nation named Jezebel. Now, Jezebel may or may not have been a nice person, but she had other gods than our God. And she brought those other gods into the temple and into our country, Old Israel. And Eliyahu, as you would imagine, did not like this. And he spoke out against the injustices and the other gods and straying away from the Hebrew way of life. And this got him into a lot of trouble with the people in power. And for quite a while, he went on the run, and he was in hiding. And once he was on the road and in hiding, he ran into one of his more senior students, Obadiah. And Obadiah came to him and said, "Hey, you know what? Myself and the students, we're taking all the heat for you back in Jerusalem. You're on the road and you're running around and you're hiding, but nevertheless, you're not in the danger and we are in the danger. So now's the time for you to step to the plate, to come and see what you can do about how changing things and how they are. About making sure that there is justice, there is a tzedakah in the country." And Eliyahu knew he was right. So this is what he did. He went to the king and said, "Let's have a contest. Let's have a contest of these false gods against Hashem, against our God. Let's have a contest, and whoever wins the contest shall be the God of Israel. And we will follow that God, and we will praise that God. And the followers of the other foreign gods, Balaam, will be put to death." And the king thought this was a correct idea. Now, there was also a tremendous drought in the land. It had not rained for an incredible long time. So it was dry and parched. And the day came for this contest. And let me explain to you what this contest was. All the students in Eliyahu gathered, and all the false prophets that worshiped the other gods came as well. And all the people in Israel were there. And the contest was, they would put an ox on a gigantic mound of wood. And whoever can light this mound of wood to create a burnt offering, that group would have been proved to be the followers of the true deity, the true God. So in effect, what we have is a barbecue. And everyone came, and it was a big day, and it was a frightening day. It was still a dry day. The drought was still there. And the stakes were really high. The stakes eventually would be on the barbecue, but stakes were really high. Because whoever lost would be put to death. And Eliyahu was under tremendous pressure. But he allowed the false prophets to go first. And the ox was there on the pyre. And they danced around and they prayed. Said, "Please set this on fire." And they prayed louder, nothing happened. And louder, and nothing happened. And they were screaming to their gods, pleading to their gods to have the fire start. I kid you not, Eliyahu stepped in and said, maybe your gods are talking to someone else right now. Maybe he's busy. And back then they didn't have call waiting. He didn't actually say that, but I thought I'd throw that in. And there, the false prophets, in the middle of their screaming, started to flail themselves and beat upon themselves until there was blood coming from their backs. And still there was no fire. And the tension grew. And Eliyahu knew in that moment that no true God, no God worthy of being followed, would want their people to suffer and to hurt themselves. But the false prophets continued and it didn't work. And they finally gave up. And Eliyahu came to the pyre, and whispered, God is great. God is wonderful. And flames came up, and the ox became an offering. The smell was sweet, and Hashem was pleased with the smell. And thus, the false gods were banished from the house of Israel, and our one Hebrew God remained. Eliyahu's students set upon the false prophets and slayed them. And meanwhile, Eliyahu went up to a mountaintop and looked out upon the Mediterranean Sea. And there, he fell to his knees and wept into his hands, an outpouring of weeping and crying. And when he looked up out onto the sea, he saw the rain clouds approaching, and the drought was over. Go enjoy Lag BaOmer in any way you can today. Do virtual gatherings, step outside, pray outside, speak Hebrew outside. Because it is a day for us, for Jews, for all Hebrews, to be out of hiding, to not be behind walls, but to be outside in nature in whichever way you can, under Hashem's sky, the limitless sky. And be well. May shalom be upon you. Lag BaOmer Sameach.